In 2015, there was a large breakthrough in the field of gene editing, specifically in CRISPR, a technique called CRISPR. Since then, scientists have been slowly exploring the new possibilities with it. And it has a lot of positive possibilities. For example, we can start thinking about preventing certain genetic disorders in children before they're born, which, at least on the surface, definitely sounds beneficial. I'm also not going to pretend like I'm an expert in the field. I am not. I'm just some random asshole who has an opinion on everything. But as a random asshole who has an opinion, I'm about to share my opinion. And specifically about the at least two possible dangers considering human genetic engineering. The first one is, in the big picture, maybe a little less important, but it's definitely still rather big. We already see in modern developing nations that the gap between the rich and the poor has been increased in the past few decades. That's already troublesome. It causes a lot of strife, and it causes a society to function less effectively and less fairly. This problem would only be bigger when appearance and stuff can be engineered before a child is born. Because imagine this, parents are rich. Parents want the best for their children. And if the possibility is there to make sure that their children are attractive and healthy, athletic and intelligent, they most likely will. I would, if I could. I want my kid to have the best possible life. Result of that is that the children of rich parents, well, they are kind of like super perfect kids. They are rich, they are intelligent, they are healthy, they already have a head start because their parents are rich, which is already a benefit. So they will most likely also become more successful than the children from poor parents who can't afford such techniques. And this is a problem that only keeps getting worse over the generations, because the gap between engineered kids and non-engineered kids becomes bigger and bigger until potentially, and now I'm going like a bit far, but it's definitely possible, in a few generations you have like basically two races of people. The perfect, rich, successful ones in power, and the non-perfect. Well, that's obviously going a bit far, but you definitely see the problem now. Well, that problem could already been fixed a little. For example, and this is very hypothetical, but if you make it so the option of genetic engineering is possible for everyone. This is a ridiculously expensive thing, but it is at least conceivable that we could prevent this gap from forming. The second problem, however, is more significant and more dangerous. Genes are incredibly complex, and even now with our research we only understand a very small portion of the different functions our genes have. If we start making changes we don't fully understand, this could have big consequences. Imagine someone wants to become more intelligent. It's already problematic because we don't fully understand what intelligence is. But imagine they can make them more intelligent. That would mean quite a lot would have to be changed, because intelligence is made up by a lot of different factors. So we have done a lot of gene editing in that child that we don't fully understand. The functions of those genes we don't fully understand. We just know they cause someone to be more intelligent, but we don't know what other functions they might have. And that kid grows up, has kids, and those kids have kids. And in generations from now, those altered genes have spread throughout the entire human species, or at least a large portion of it. And this problem only gets worse if more kids get genetically altered. And now suddenly we find out with like new research that these genes we've spread throughout the entire species makes us more vulnerable to certain diseases or certain disorders. At that point, there is nothing we can do to it against it. Like, it's done. We can't take those genes out of our species anymore. Yeah, well, we can if we edit every single kid that gets born to not have those genes. Like that's already problematic because it doesn't help the people who are still alive. And it's also problematic because it means even more gene editing with even more unforeseen consequences. I'm not arguing that we should never use gene editing. I think there are lots of possibilities to improve our lives and our society. And if it's certain that someone gets a horrible genetic disorder, I think it's totally reasonable to try and change that. But I am saying it's not black and white. There are definitely a lot of dangers there that have to be considered, and the utmost care needs to be taken before we start doing this for anything other than absolute necessary situations. Because I have seen a lot of people who paint this off like another advancement versus conservatives, like people who don't want anything to change and are scary of technology versus people who are brave enough to step into this brave new world. But there are definitely dangers, and it's a risky thing. It is a risky thing. But all in all, despite all of those dangers, I'm still quite optimistic because I think there are lots of possibilities, and I have no idea like what it's gonna bring us. It could bring us amazing things. In the long run, it could pave the way for spectacular things like living for 1,000 years or even not aging at all. Like, I think it's definitely worth continuing research. Just be careful.